Welcome to For the Record with Greenwood Law.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of For the Record with Greenwood Law with my buddy, attorney Dylan W. Greenwood, the founder of Greenwood Law out in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm your host, Mike Leon. Dylan here is a high-profile criminal defense attorney. He's been representing clients in both state and federal court. He's known for his high-level, personalized representation and hands-on approach to every case. And in today's episode, we're talking about expungements and how North Carolina law gives people a chance to wipe the slate clean and start over. Dylan, it's good to see you. Let's start on expungements. Maybe some people don't know what those are. It's a very big word. As you can see, I'm struggling to even say it. But expungements have become a bigger part of criminal defense in recent years. How did that area of your practice develop over at Greenwood Law?
Honestly, ever since we started here, expunctions or expungements, and they're kind of used interchangeably, to be honest, have been a big focus about clearing someone's record up, because we were just seeing a lot of people who were either falsely accused of something, or they had gotten to a point in their lives where they had just significantly changed whatever was going on in their life, and they no longer were the person that they were back 10, 12, 15, 25 years ago when they committed whatever they committed, and they wanted a second chance. And I'm happy to see the progress North Carolina has made over the course of my career, because when it started, you got one expunction in your whole entire lifetime. You got to pick what it went for, and that was it. So if you were in a situation where you were falsely accused of a bunch of, the easiest example was assaultive type scenarios over and over and over again, you would have to pick one, and that was it. Despite there being a bunch of not guilties or dismissals. So now that's not the case. Now in North Carolina, if you've got a not guilty, if you've got a dismissal, you can expunge it. And there's the ability to expunge some guilty convictions as well, but there's a significant amount of rules that you have to abide by to be able to get that type of expunction.
So we're going to dive into some of that in a second, but let's talk about what an expungement legally does for somebody under North Carolina law when they get it.
What it legally does is it basically means that that conviction doesn't exist anymore. Okay, if it's in the case of a guilty related expunction. If it's a not guilty, then the charge doesn't exist anymore. You're not going to find it on public record at all. The effect it has for those who were found guilty of something and then they were able to expunge it is quite significant, because there are certain felonies that are allowed to be expunged, and that can restore gun rights. That can restore your ability to potentially vote. All those things that were taken away when you were a convicted felon, all of a sudden no longer apply. In fact, in one scenario, this hole, I hate using the word loophole in my job, but this one hole was closed where I got a particular charge expunged because of how old a young man was at the time he was convicted, but was put on a sex offense registry. And he actually qualified for an expunction under a specific, very rarely used statute. And we got that for him, and then he eventually got off the registry. And I have to say, I think that was a just outcome in that scenario, because when we went back and looked at the case, we believe that a lot of the witnesses in that case had actually lied.
So let me go back to something you just said. What kind of cases then are eligible for the expungement, and which ones in that scenario, sex offense potentially, which ones usually aren't?
Okay, so to be eligible for an expunction of which you were convicted, it has to be nonviolent, okay? And only certain drug offenses actually apply. So typically think of it as possession with intent to sell and deliver marijuana and less. So everything less. So if you think about that as sort of the demarcation line, possession with intent to sell and deliver cocaine and up, not going to happen. Okay. So those things, are not eligible. Certain breaking and entering offenses, not eligible. Some are, but some aren't. So you got to know how to parse through that and figure out which ones are not. DWIs, those convictions, not eligible. Anything assaultive, not eligible. Those are the main ones that people, they call us up and they think that they're eligible to get something. And a lot of those, especially the assaults, the high-level drug offenses, any A through G felony, any of that stuff can actually disqualify you from getting another non-violent felony expunged. So it actually takes away that ability if you have a disqualifying conviction somewhere.
What's funny, because I was just about to ask you, if someone does have multiple charges or convictions over the years, depending upon what, the severity of the charges like we just talked about, how does that affect their chances of having anything removed from their record?
Yeah, so that becomes a much more complicated scenario. And based off of that, we have to line up sort of the timeline as to when certain convictions happened. Did they fall under the same calendar in court? So typically a calendar for district court lasts a day. Now, some counties do things differently, especially rural counties might do it a little bit differently, but it is typically a day. Superior court, however, can last much longer and usually does, at least a week, if not more. And some counties have 2 and 3 week long superior court sessions. So if it happened under the same session, it's basically like it's under the same calendar and will count for the same time period. Okay. So that's where you have to really parse through and look at that and know each county's specific approach. Most of the time, if that's going to happen, it's going to be resolved on the same day. Most of the time, people don't want to come back to court more than one time for the same case. It does not always happen, and sometimes that's a strategic thing on the front end, but that's a whole other discussion. But from an expunction perspective, you have to look at the timing. So typically, if you just have one misdemeanor you're trying to go, it's about 5 years. Multiple misdemeanors, 7 years. And that's since the date, not just of conviction, but from when all the stuff related to the judgment was wrapped up. So think probation, fines, fees, all that when you wrapped it up. So that's when that clock will start to tick, not the date you were convicted. And then for a felony, you're looking at around 10 years, and then for multiple felonies, more.
Dylan, a second ago, you were talking about the impact that expungements could have on voting rights, potential to own a gun in the States, but also, I'm sure, employment, right? So what are some of the other unexpected ways, maybe beyond those three things that you kind of lose rights to or could impact your day to day? What are some other unexpected ways that a criminal record can hold people back in their everyday life?
Sure. School is another one. I mean, I know that's akin to employment, but schools are doing background checks more and more. So the ability to be able to, say that you have a clean criminal record can really help with school. I've seen the impact it has on people's opportunities, whether it be to get financing for a business venture they're trying to do. Obviously, employment because of the background checks that are done there. I know we mentioned that, but it's worth stating again in all candor. The other thing is, it is so palpable to watch that lift off of somebody. When you hand them that order and say, "Listen, this is off." You can tell the impact it has on them mentally, that they feel like they really do have a second chance at something where, they have been dealing with that particular issue holding them back significantly.
Then let's talk a little bit more about Greenwood Law. What's the process like if someone hires your firm? How long does it take? What should they expect along the way if they were to decide to use you guys?
So we try to toe that line between efficiency, quickness, but getting it done correctly. And when it comes down to it, we're always going to make sure that we do everything we can to get it done correctly. So I know a lot of people, when they first become eligible for an expunction, they want it done right away because they go, "God, I've been waiting all this time. I want it done now." And I get that. I really do. But it also needs to be done right, because if you mess it up, it can have the impact where you don't get the relief, because the felony versions of those types of expunctions we've been talking about are discretionary with the court. They don't have to do them. And I have watched judges make that election not to do them. A lot of times because stuff was not done correctly or it was not presented well. So that's something to always bear in mind. But how we start, we work with people to get all the necessary information. We get everything that we can that's pertinent about the case to be able to know going into it what to potentially expect. Do we expect any blowback from the DA's office or the state of North Carolina? And most of the time, not. I mean, a lot of times the district attorney's office is just as happy or willing to facilitate this occurring as you are in a lot of ways, because they'd much rather see people be out here and be productive and not continue to go through the court system. Yeah. So when that happens, we get all that information. We reach out to other people that we have to, because there are affidavits that need to be filed. There's filing fees that need to be paid. There's a bunch of stuff that needs to be filed through our new e-court system here in North Carolina. And all that needs to be done, like I said, correctly. And we're doing it, a lot of them in a very large geographic area at this point, because we've just made expunctions a really important part of who we are here.
So Dylan, as we land the plane on this episode, someone's listening to this, maybe they think the expungement might help them, or maybe somebody that they know and love. What should they do in terms of finding out if they even qualify for it?
Sure. Well, I've mentioned a few things that would definitely disqualify you. And if you feel like that might apply to you, then I would tell you to always keep track of what the legislator what your legislator is doing and what the legislature overall is doing, because this is an ever-evolving aspect of the law. It has evolved a number of times since we've had these significant changes in law to provide the relief that I've been talking about here today. So keeping abreast of that is a big thing. But if there really is a question as to whether or not you qualify, reaching out to an attorney that knows what they're doing. Obviously, we try to stay up to date on this all the time. To be able to parse through and figure that out matters a lot. And they should be able to give you a pretty good read or a good check as to whether or not it would be worth your time, your effort, and your resources in an effort to try and seek this type of expunction relief. So that would be my recommendation. We do that for people all the time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we have to make that phone call and say, listen, you're just not eligible right now. Either you might have to wait a little bit longer because people think they're eligible right the day, at the 10-year mark, but maybe their probation lasted a little bit longer than they thought. Or they think that, one of those disqualifying convictions doesn't apply to them when it actually does. And there's been a big push actually here of late to potentially change the expunction law to also incorporate possession with to sell and deliver cocaine, although that has not passed yet. But I know that has been the recent push and continues to be a big push in this area.
Dylan, thanks for the time and insights on this. We truly appreciate it.
Thanks again, Mike. Happy to be here.
And thank you to everybody out there for listening to this installment of For the Record with Greenwood Law. If you want to learn more about attorney Dylan Greenwood or his team, do me a favor, visit dwg-law.com. You're going to find all the helpful resources about criminal defense and record clearing in the state of North Carolina. As always, thanks for listening to this episode, but don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review and comment, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. As always, I'm Mike Leon. We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.